Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, and this is another episode of At Home. Now, as an architect, you can't get more personal than building your own home. Today, we're so lucky we're traveling out west to visit my dear friend and Hall of Famer, Clive Wilkinson, who did just that. And not only built a modern home that is winning all sorts of awards, he also created a gorgeous, loving home for his wonderful blended family. And I'm so happy to get the tour. Hi, Clive, how are you?
Hi, Cindy. What a thrill to be on this, and kind of a privilege to be talking about one's own home.
I know. It's a hard thing to do, right? To design your own home?
I think it's the architect's nightmare,
Yeah.
mainly because they have so many ideas and they can't figure out a way of stuffing all of those ideas into this ideal conception of a home.
Right.
And they tend to find that they've got a sort of, God, they used to have this expression in England, a dog's breakfast as a result. Everything is kind of in the pot, and it simply doesn't work. So
right.
Editing and being clear about what you're trying to do is the biggest challenge, and what you leave out and what you prioritize.
Right, what you leave out is almost as important as what you put in, right?
It is.
Yeah. But you've had practice because you've designed another home before, right? Did that help you in sort of really thinking about how to, I mean, this house is so special. Was the first go around kind of a good practice run?
It was. When I started the first one, of course, I had the existential crisis, which I think every designer has,
right.
with a sort of mental block about how to approach something that you want to put all your ideas into, and you can't. But I made it easy that time by saying, what would someone very pragmatic do to just simply exploit the best potential out of the site and configure a house, not necessarily for myself, but the best use of that site, and really depersonalized it. And that worked, but then I found I had depersonalized it a tiny bit too much.
Well, you learned, lesson learned, right?
Lesson learned. So
right.
I decided the next time around I wasn't going to be quite so kind of ascetic in what I was doing. And then I just had a miracle of a opportunity with the site that's on
right.
a hill right in the middle of Los Angeles, 2 minutes off the freeway, super convenient to the beach, to downtown, to everything. And it's about 7 floors above the street below. So it's just, nothing could ever block its view. So that was just a kind of a mind-blowing thing. And it also happened to be the first site I saw. So luck suddenly sort of, converged. And
well, there's a lot of good energy around you these days. And we'll get to that. But for others, do you think that, because I know the site was something that became very special because it was so steep, and yes. Maybe that is hard for some people to imagine, but not you, right?
Well, I actually think that probably people who are familiar with building in the hills in a town like Los Angeles, have enough cues around them. And of course, there's some fabulous John Lautner houses and things like that,
right.
that are really dreamlike responses to building on a hill. The problem, of course, for an architect like me was, how far is the budget going to stretch? Because right. Building in a hill isn't inexpensive. And then how do you just optimize the window that the city is allowing you to build within, and all of those sorts of things. So it ended up by being 3 levels stacked up. And an early decision was wanting to live on the top of the house.
Right.
Because that's where all the views, the most spectacular views were.
Exactly.
And that seemed like also you could live in the roof, you could kind of use the roof. And so I made the lower 2 floors bedrooms, and then, because we've got 5 bedrooms, sizable little family. And then the top space became the big sort of gesture. And as soon as I proposed this, a couple of realtors looked at this and said, oh, this is ridiculous. This would never sell to anyone. You know, you've got to have your living in the middle when it's straight off the street and bedrooms on top.
And it's the upside down house, right? It's the upside down house. Their old vision of what that is, right?
Yes, yes. And so I was maybe worried for about like 2 minutes, and then carried on. And it has proved its worth, because we've got the kids in the basement, and we can live up on the top floor, especially for work, and we don't hear them. And they, even though they're screaming and fighting and killing each other, it just removed enough.
Right. So let's talk about like let's go into the house. Let's act like we're doing a tour. So you walk into the house. Do you see the staircase? The staircase runs through the center of the house, right?
Yes. We've got a front courtyard, sort of concrete, a lot of concrete walls.
Right.
And you enter through a big pivoting wood gate, and you come into the front courtyard, and from there you can see right through to the view, because we carved away for the house so that you would have that experience when you walked in. And then we put the stair smack in the middle, because as you go into the house, you want to sort of just flow straight up to that viewpoint, which you do going up the stair, and you arrive and you're right in the middle of this view. And you can, to your left, you can see downtown. To the right, you can see the ocean. You can see Catalina Island in the distance.
Wow.
On a clear day. So it's amazing. It's like a sort of gift every day.
Yeah, I thought I read somewhere that until you really cleared the site, you actually didn't know how good this was.
Oh yes, the site was a total jungle. I mean, it was really a jungle. It was so dilapidated, it was completely overgrown. You would need a machete to get through it. And very curious sort of old family that sold me the place. Actually, after we were in escrow, I once came across a group of them digging a hole in the garden. And
what were they doing?
Well, we know they were looking for treasure.
Yeah, they were looking. I thought maybe they were digging out their treasure, their last treasure.
They were looking for treasure, and they were very embarrassed because they weren't meant to be there.
Oh my God!
So I think there's some stories in this location which maybe one day we'll find out.
I love that. I would think the opposite. They're digging and putting a treat in for you to find in 30 years.
Well,
that would be nice.
They had to use machetes to get to even get to the spot that they were digging. It was really crazy. Anyway, so we cleared away the site, and then we were flabbergasted with this view. And the design process actually went fairly quickly, because it all just had to be very logical about how you use the site. It was a little bit like designing in a ship, because we had severe constraints with setbacks and everything like that. And we had to make every square inch work. And then the top floor became this sort of great way of just exploiting construction. It's all natural construction and exposed, but we made that space more dynamic by shifting the sort of apex of the gable roof at 45 degrees, and that just transformed this into something very dynamic and sculptural. But it also made it easy for the builders to build, because they just had a pitched roof that happened to be at an angle. So a lot of the things we were able to use, pretty basic. We didn't have to use very skilled craftsmen or anything like that.
But that angle is really stunning. It does look, I always think of it like when I first saw it, I'm like, yes, it looks like a sculpture. But then it's very crisp at the same time, right? Right? It's like
it's very simple, yeah.
Yeah, very so beautiful. So wait a minute, when you got to that form, and you're in your office and you get to this form, you're like, I have something, right? Is that what's going through your mind?
Yes, I mean, we did little physical models, little paper models, and we tried it, honestly, we tried it sort of every different angle. And we ended up this one because it also was able to be rationalized structurally very, very simply as well. So it's like, okay, this just design sort of drops into its kind of, its final self at a certain point, and you just have to see that and run with it then.
And how did you decide on the materiality of what you would use?
Again, very basic construction materials. Douglas fir is the common wood that we use out here. I knew that we would have a difference between the construction wood used on the roof, and then the slightly better carpenter applied wood on the walls, and that we'd end up with two different lots of Douglas fir, and there could be differences. So we had a plan to just sandblast the lot. And when you sandblast wood together like that, it just naturally starts to blend. And there's no sealer or varnish or anything like that on it at all.
But it's also it's concrete on the outside, correct?
Mixture.
Or some of it is.
Yeah, the lower areas are concrete, a lot of concrete. And then this whole upper floor is clad in black zinc.
I love that, yeah.
And the black zinc just sort of wraps the whole thing. And it's an extraordinary material because it self-heals. If it gets a little scratch or something like that, it'll start closing it up over time.
Wow. Have you used that before?
Not at this scale. So really, it's very long term. It's a 50 to 100 year material.
That's amazing. I had no idea it self-healed. And I wonder, like, do you ever want it to look a little old? I guess not.
Oh, there will always be the marks of construction that you can't ignore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bedrooms are downstairs, and then the middle, so the second level is the master bedroom, right?
Master bedroom, and that carve away for the view, the sort of patio at the second floor, a guest room, and the garage to the street. Yeah.
And then you head up, and you change this beautiful sort of grill work on the stairs heading up, right?
Yes, that's sort of, we use quite a lot of black steel. And so this was a moment of saying that it'd be so nice to have light being filtered through the screen. And also it gives us a little, I hadn't mentioned that there's a public walkway down that open side of the house. So
wow.
kind of the house genuflects to the public walkway, and that's part of that gesture. But it also means the glass around there also means that you're a little more exposed. So we wanted to have a little bit more shielding. So when you come down the stairs, you're not easily on view to the public. So we developed a design and used an algorithmic pattern to kind of shape that. And that it's all based on V's and K's. And those relate very directly to the V brace that's on the outside. So they're all the same angles repeated. And the same angles are repeated in the guardrail supports, which also are shaped like that.
That's beautiful. Yeah, you know, the thing about you, Clive, is that the architecture is always really, really strong, but there's an exuberance to things that you do. Even if it's like you said, it's very methodical, it's very planned, but those moments are so beautiful, and that black and steel grill work is gorgeous.
Oh, you're so sweet. That was fun. That was really fun. And also, you got to know when to stop with something like that. So it only really happens at that moment.
Right, and like behind you. So we have a black and steel moment behind you with all the bookcases, but also what you're sitting on. Like, you know, you said, like, I'm fearless. I love it. That's what it is.
Great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Great Maharam fabric.
We love Maharam. So I want to know, so is that the media room, which is actually at the front of the house with the huge glass?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll actually do a rotation of the laptop. So
yeah, let's see.
Let's have a look. So the street is out there. The lower part is actually a haze on the glass for privacy reasons. And you can see up to the top there, and then going all the way around, you can see the library on the other side.
Yes, yes.
I wonder if I can just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. You might as well.
Oh, sorry, it's a little bit, little rocky.
Yeah, just come back to me. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So it's interesting because it looks like, first of all, that's such a huge expanse from the street. But it's the back of the house where you get the completely glorious view, right? And you're on that floor. So you're on the living room floor right now, right?
Yes, absolutely. But what's also gorgeous is the sun's, it's a south facing house, but the sun creeps all the way around, and it comes in every evening in these windows right here. So we get this kind of beautiful blast of sunlight around sort of 6, 7 o'clock.
That's amazing. So how has it been being in the middle, having the kids at the bottom, and having this amazing living kitchen expanse upstairs?
It's fantastic. And one of the reasons, as I said earlier, the separation of 3 floors makes the appalling noise of the children really sort of suppressed. And then, of course, when they are upstairs here, and it sometimes does get riotous, sometimes that's great in small doses. And then sometimes we just say, you have to go downstairs.
Right.
And they get banished. And so we have volume control.
Yeah, you do. I love that.
But we have it's a house with volume control.
I love that. I love it. So let's back up a little just to tell everybody. So how long ago did you get married to the wonderful, beautiful, lovely Elizabeth? How long has it been now?
Gosh, it's almost 2 years ago, and we've been together almost 4 years. But I got the house just before, and in fact designed it just before meeting her. So it was in construction.
It was in construction. Uh-huh. And so, but you were blending this family that was going to move into this house.
Yes, yes. I've got 2 of my own children, and then so there were 2 rooms for those 2. And then, yes, suddenly I had a relationship with a fabulous Elizabeth and adorable Chloe, our 14-year-old, my 14-year-old stepdaughter now.
Right.
And just fortunately, the house was able to take all 3 bedrooms. I had this sort of spare bedroom on the bottom floor. Maybe it was in anticipation somehow.
Totally, totally. Wait, what are your kids' names? Let's make sure we give everyone their due.
Mine is Hayden, who is turning 10, and Kiki, who is 8. And then there's Chloe, who's 14.
Fantastic. No, that's wonderful. So how exciting was that for the whole family to move into this new house?
Very exciting, although of course it was, we went through the same thing that everyone goes through with the house, which is, are we going to be ready in October? Are we going to be ready in November? Are we going to be ready in December? And of course, when we actually moved in, we had no hot water. We had no gas for cooking. And we had to have cold showers for about 6 weeks, and it was winter.
Oh my goodness. So that was fun.
So it kind of put a little bit of a damper on moving in.
Yeah. On the whole vision of swooping up your wife and crossing the threshold, right?
Right.
Right. So what were some of the, you're building this house. What were some of the difficult, difficult moments or lessons learned in building this house?
Well, we had a couple of terrible contractors, not the main contractor, but 2 subcontractors, one, the concrete one and the steel one, 2 of the most important.
Right, of course.
And so we had a lot of problems with concrete and had to have walls literally pulled down and redone. And then we had mind-boggling issues of steel coordination, which I've never experienced in my life. Steel, I've always regarded steel as one of these great trades that has very tight tolerances. It's kind of an 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch tolerance. We had a con put in that was 4 feet out of place.
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
We had the errors were just, they were just mind-boggling. I was wondering how these people could be in the trade.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway,
I'm so sorry. Well, you can't tell now, and it looks perfect, or as perfect as you want it to be. Let's talk about some of the furnishings, which are really beautiful and eclectic. And you've always had an amazing hand for that, even in all of the commercial work that you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, we were able to reuse more than I expected. This is actually a reclad.
Love that.
A Dutch Montes sofa from the first house.
Love that.
Yeah, a couple of these were reclad, and so a fair bit of recycled furniture. And then we got some nice Casina sofas, Pirilisoni, also a couple of Pirilisoni rotating armchairs. And
he's a master. He's a master.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we actually had a day bed from the old house, which was also pure Lusoni, that just happened to blend perfectly in the master bedroom. The grey and white sort of textured fabric went exactly with the concrete behind it.
Love that.
So serendipitous things happened. In fact, the orange things in this room, there are quite a few orange things in this room, which were part of the past, just happened to work here as well. And then, of course, I had my dad's handmade dining table, which is made of ironwood, which he made at age 90.
Oh, really? It's beautiful, and I love the eclectic mix of the chairs around the table.
Yeah, well, there's another nice story there. There's only 2 upholstered chairs around the table, and the children are not allowed to sit in those. We were going to get a couple more upholstered chairs, and then we realized that they would have massive stains in no time. So there's a lot of practical, yes, Eames plywood and Panton chairs and things like that.
Fantastic. Hey, kids, you're getting a bad rap here. Wait, I want to talk about the bathroom. It's stunning. And I think you had mentioned that you designed the bathroom around the tub.
Oh, yes. We found a perfect tub. So hard to find the right tub, and of course it has to do with the space, but also, even more importantly, it has to do with being a great tub to lie in. I've forgotten the name of that brand. It's an Italian tub, and now they've discontinued them. But yes, it had a black outside and a white inside, yeah. and so the black and white theme of the bathroom kind of evolved from there. And then we found these great, actually commune designed floor tiles, which are kind of
the cement tiles, right?
And charcoal. Yes, kind of Moroccan cement tiles.
Right.
And we paired that also with Bazaza mosaics for the shower. And then the sink area, we were able to get these great, I think they're agape, sort of flowing in basins. So that was all a lot of fun. And then painted the carcass of the vanity black lacquer, so it kind of went with everything.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. I love the bathroom. It's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Of course, I have not been in the house yet, but one day I will. I'm on the wrong post. Yeah. But I do see, Clive, you have a lot of your friends, our friends over. I saw Joey Shimoda there, and like everyone must be really excited and loving being in the house.
Oh, people are fabulous. Yes, we had a cocktail party in January before everything sort of went pear-shaped with COVID-19. And so many people, I think Edie Cohen was here. So many people came and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, like what is that like with architect friends at architect friends' homes?
Oh, the questions.
Right.
And the jokes. It's all great.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. You know what I say about, my house here, which is also an upside down house.
I can't wait to see one day.
Yeah, you'll see one day. But that it's a happy house. Like, I think it's important to live in places where you feel loved and feel happy. And when I see this house, which is gorgeous and strong and architectural, but when I see you in there with your family, it feels very much like a happy house.
It is. I think that we always feel a sort of sense of privilege to be, and a sense of gratitude to be in a place that's really fundamentally lovely to be in, and we actually going through COVID-19, and we can't complain. Honestly, it's such a privilege. It has been obviously a brutal period for everyone, mostly because of personal relationships and challenges that business challenges and things like that. But we are extremely lucky to be living in this kind of living and working, adapting to working from home.
Right. It really feels like an oasis for you and your family. And how is how is the whole blended family thing going? You can tell me. Well,
I guess I complain about the sort of hooligan behavior, but they're most happy when they're hooligans, and you get to a point of you go through admonishing them, and then you realize, but they're so enjoying this behavior. So why don't you shut up and just enjoy it too? So yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing. Chloe's the 14-year-old who is now also helping the younger ones with their schooling and kind of guiding them and things like that. And she's got over the completely natural initial sort of sort of awkwardness of a 14-year-old having to, you know, deal with these little kids,
Right.
which is completely natural. And she's adapted fantastically. She's an excellent older sister, and they're very grateful.
Yeah, of course. And Clive, I just would like to remind you that you can be extremely, it's what we love so much about, so exuberant and so full of life and so passionate and maybe even a little rowdy once in a while.
This is true. No, I've got to blame myself, absolutely. They might be taking after me, but part of educating them is to teach them not to take after me.
You take after the good parts, and you know. Well, first of all, how's the office doing? How are you guys managing? Have any projects opened up?
We yes, one very nice one has just opened up for a cannabis company. I think this industry is growing in leaps and bounds, and in fact the COVID-19 is actually in their favor. So yes, this is a company of about 5,000 people who need offices all over the world, and so we're working on a whole new concept for that. And that's
fantastic news, Clive, huh?
Yeah, oh my God, it's such a relief. Yes.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Thanks.
You know, it's like, you know, I wonder what we'll say in years from now, looking back, what we learned, but certainly when something like that comes through, you have to really count your blessings, that's for sure. Yes,
we also have a wonderful project with Lululemon doing their headquarters in Vancouver. So those two in particular are, and we're converting a Lautner house as well, John Lautner.
You are?
We are, for a wonderful client, and that's academically fascinating.
Like I could see this house as being one in 50 years. We look back at that house and say that represented, you know, a modernist house of its time, and it's going to last forever, kind of thing.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. I think the fundamentals of the house are of its time. It's very simple in using the way it uses concrete, the way it uses steel and glass. It's rational and simple, and then it does celebrate its living areas, which I mean, I think these are all very appropriate and classic concerns in creating a house. So it's not frivolous in any sort of shape or form, but at the same time, it does manage to be expressive about. I think it expresses the right things. In other words,
right. It certainly does. It's like you said, it's like really honest materials, and ones that are going to look great for a long time. Especially that roof, especially the blackened. What did you say that heals itself?
Black zinc.
The black zinc. God, that's fantastic.
It's great. It's a Swiss material. Yeah, it's lovely.
Amazing. Well, listen, I wish you all the love and happiness. Send big love and hugs to Elizabeth, and I can't wait to get the tour in real life, in real time, and get one of your Clive Wilkinson hugs. But meanwhile, this will be okay too.
Oh, thank you so much, Cindy. Love you too.
Sending you lots and lots of love, okay?
Bye.
Okay. Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, and welcome to another episode of At Home, where we take you inside a designer's own cherished home. Today we head out to Eastern Long Island to the South Fork, where one of the industry's top American architects celebrating classic modernism today, Lee Mindel, our very own Lee, of Shelton Mindel, designs his own stunning waterside retreat. And trust me, this is something special. Hi, Lee.
Hello. Hello, Cindy.
How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Nice to see you. Always
so nice to see you too.
Yeah.
You know, I remember, it was a long time ago now, but I remember when you started building this home. Tell us a little bit about, because I remember the little house before this house.
Well, there was a little Unabomber shack on here, a very humble Unabomber shack on a absolutely magnificent site. And I thought of, gosh, if one could take advantage of the context and explore the different vocabularies on Long Island, what a wonderful opportunity it was. So I remember standing on the crumbling Unabomber shack's roof with a ladder.
Oh, really?
Kind of fantasizing about the views, and it was kind of a scrubby site, but there was water and there was the sunset. And what brought the painters to the Hamptons was the water and the sunset. So I thought, if maybe this could be something, we could build a job without an apparent client.
Right.
So I didn't want to think of myself as a client. I wanted to think of the idea as the client and follow the idea through.
Lee, how hard was that to do, actually?
It was really rough because neighbors are always afraid of people that come in, particularly of architects, into older neighborhoods. And when they see something like a concrete truck coming in, they think you're building a nursing home.
Right, right.
The construction and scaffolding, they're always afraid that you're going to undermine their neighborhood and their context. Our goal was to do the opposite.
Right, of course.
Irony, and I worked on this with my best friend from Harvard GSD, Reed Morrison. We worked on this. It was such a challenge on the site with the setbacks and the new zoning codes to build something that actually ultimately kind of disappeared, even though it was different than what was here. And the irony is now when you walk across the beach or whatever, and you look towards this site, you kind of can't tell what's going on here. And all the old contextual houses look much louder and more prominent than this was. So I was the turtle killer, the person killing the neighborhood, and took an awful lot of grief from everybody. But now people are quite happy because how you have the opportunity in architecture to respect the environment and not build a mausoleum per se, and explore things and views. And in fact, the site is nicer because of the intervention here than if you created something that looked just like the neighbor's buildings.
Right, so you had water to the north, and yet you wanted to bring the light in from the south. So,
Yeah.
So let us know how you actually came up with the design.
Very, very good question, Cindy, because that's the conundrum when you have views that face north.
Right.
You want to get the south light. How do you deal with that? So we created this kind of origami structure that complied with the street geometry on the front. And it is a concrete structure which is clad in a kind of quilt of contextual wood that relates to all the architecture around it. There are gestures that look like a drawbridge, a refreshment stand peeled off of the facade, a barn door that peels off of the facade. So it was to draw on not only with architectural components, but with the landscape components of the project did the same thing. Create a quilt of the contextualism to celebrate the area we were in. So we took—
I like how you describe it. I won't say it. You just describe how you opened it, how you—
Well, it's kind of like an origami puzzle that opens up and closes, you know, and the building itself breaks open to answer your question of how do you deal with north view and south light. The building is organized on a boardwalk, and everything on the light south side of the boardwalk complies with the street geometry. But then in order to bring the light and to break towards the geometry on the north exposure, the building shifts and breaks open. So everything along the boardwalk on the water side is affected by the current of the water, and it is pulled away from its other volume, creating a kind of crevice and a shift. And in that shift from up above, the south light comes in and informs the house. So the attempt was to try to get the best of all the worlds that were here. The beautiful south light in the front, which is more private because it is the front, and then the shifting geometry along the water and the water views. So the shift in those geometries create beautiful diagonal axes through the house, so you can always see front and back, but it's very private and it looks very small from the front. And as you move towards the side, the hypotenuse of the triangle is always the largest dimension. Those components that you see the shift are on an angle, so they look larger, but they're very discrete because you never see them from the street or the water, only along the boardwalk. So
I like how you describe, I like how you described that the opening, which you're describing as origami, but you described it as opening it like a cracked egg.
it is, it is. And then it's almost if you took the shells of the egg and you shifted them and you got the experience of the void between the two.
Right.
And so this sort of, what separates the two buildings is a glass wedge, actually. The building has a wedgie. So
The building's got a wedgie. There you go. There's some of that Lee humor.
yes, so it's got the glass wedge, and it sparkles all the time, and it feels like a lighthouse in a way. It respects the water, and the discrete shell of the building is made up of the contextual components of all the neighboring houses and adjoining properties.
You know, it's funny because the front of the house also feels very hidden. I thought when I was looking at pictures that may have been the back of the house at first, like where you got married, right?
The more glassy side is to the view.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the light was achieved in the front was the wedge pops up above everything. So that totally fills in the house with light, but it allows the front to be private and discreet.
Mm-hmm.
So from the street, it's very low key.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I actually loved that, Lee. When I figured out, oh, it's hidden, but it's in the front of the house. I thought that was really special.
well, the another issue in these site plans that you have to deal with are enclosures of spaces, outdoor spaces. For example, swimming pools in certain areas, you have to have fences. But fences sometimes look like they're enclosing something. So we created a series of gates areas.
Right.
So no enclosure is the same that surrounds an area. So by creating the stone retaining walls, they look like an entry to something, and then the other closure is done through other means. So around the pool, there are actually 4 types of enclosure that give it the legal enclosure. One is the stone retaining wall. The other is a kind of hidden fence in the planting. The other is a kind of barn meadow indigenous fence, and then the building itself. So you're never aware that you're being enclosed.
Was the pool house built at the same time, Lee?
Yes.
It was. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I mean, it feels like it was always meant to be there. And yet it has its own personality at the same time, which I love.
Well, that's an interesting point, because since that's closest to the property line, the intention there was to make a transition from the small contextual architecture. So there's a gable that's fully exposed in the first bay that's quite low. In the second bay is a semi-enclosed gable, same gable. And in the third is a fully enclosed. So that is the transition on that corner where that indigenous building, as it were, has a glass curtain wall that you never see until you're in the back, and that foreshadows all the glass used in the main building.
So we'll talk about the pool house because it's fantastic, but let's get inside the house.
Okay.
How big is it? How many bedroom and baths are there?
I've never counted the square footage here.
An architect who doesn't know the square footage, I love
I purposely don't, because
No.
but it's 3 bedrooms in the main house, and in the pool house there's a bedroom upstairs. Each of them embraces views of the landscape and gets a little surprise when you're in each of those spaces.
Everything is glorious, let's face it.
And
I can see that there's, you know, you're sweeping up. Is that in the living room?
there's a 2-story corner. I
Mhm.
call them multi-useless sitting areas because there's so many places to look at the view. So they're multi-useless, which are the best kind. But wedge is 2-story, and then the sort of dining sitting area has a 2-story corner, and I'm in the living room now, which is more of a 1-story thing. So these spaces are sculpted and hollowed out in different places.
And you also have to, you're connecting 2 sides of the house on the 2nd story, right?
Yeah, there's a bridge that connects the master suite from the other bedrooms, and it's a sculptural component because instead of having railings, it's a kind of glass tunnel that is in the wedge, completely illuminated. And it's even, you can see through the bottom, it's made of subway grating. So it feels transparent.
You know, you sort of found a way. I don't know how you do it, Lee, but you know, every interior almost looks like an art gallery, but it feels warm and inviting at the same time.
We were very conscious here of the need to have a pH balance of warm and cool.
Uh-huh.
Well, concrete on its own is very gray.
Right.
It can be very cool. And wood on its own can be too hot and warm. So here we used farmed eucalyptus, large architectural expressions of it, the core of the building and a whole side of kitchen and HVAC area. And so there was an attempt to balance warm and cool. The wood components are large architectural elements, and when they're juxtaposed against the concrete, they create a balance. They don't own a gender, they don't own a hot or a cold, they neutralize each other, and they are better off because of their adjacency. The wood is so happy to be by the concrete, you know, to cool off. And the concrete is so happy to be by the wood to warm up.
And all the glass too.
And the glass. So, and plus we made an attempt to make a very honest building where you can understand exactly how it's constructed. The challenges of that, for example, was in revealing all the slabs, the electrical work had to be set with beer cans in the pouring of the slabs because you have no drop ceiling or anything. And we hit it right 99% of the time. There are a couple of holes there that had to get filled that didn't quite make it. But generally, it was hard, but it was worth it because you understand the full shell, the full enclosure, and the logic of a building. To cover up the logic of a building sometimes is a crime. Buildings often look better when they're framed than when they're completed. So the attempt here was to explore that idea of how to look at the shell of something while also creating finishes and an hierarchy within it.
You have, like, you know, obviously you have such amazing collection of furniture and objects from the 20th century, and so many artists are represented there. That's your calling card in a way. You know, we always expect to be surprised with you, Lee.
When we started the practice, I was so grateful to be trained by great people who actually I was trained by, or people that I studied. And at the time, it seemed possible to actually be able to acquire those things very reasonably. And I was determined in this project to explore my own architectural DNA. And the people that all meant something to me, I felt I wanted them to be able to have a conversation together and that I could still be their pupil in that conversation. So they're all represented here in different pieces. Le Corbusier is speaking to Charlotte Perriand, who's speaking to Arne Jacobsen, who's speaking to Gio Ponti.
They're all happy. They're all happy friends playing with Lee, right?
And well, having a conversation with themselves, and I'm their pupil and student. So I'm still in awe of who they are. And I'm almost intimidated that these represent those people who mean so much to me and taught me so much.
You also like have an amazing hand with color, which is very hard to do. And you're so brilliant at
I
that.
never think of pop of color. It's one of my pet peeve sayings. I just,
Really?
I, I call them tableau jobs, okay?
Okay.
Because there are kind of relationships that objects form with each other in the dialogue. And if you listen to the object and you look at the context, something comes out of that conversation. For example, in this site, the grasses are all chartreuse and the leaves can turn orange and there are woods everywhere. Now, if I duck to the side, you'll see that in this room, that is expressed in the wood ceramics that are on the back console there.
I
Now,
see them. I see them.
so the grasses over here, they look like the grass is coming up. So when you're inside and you're looking at these pops of color, they're not really pops of color. They're the nature that's happening in the site. So you're starting to relate them to the context that's here, and they don't seem alien. They seem like they're having a relationship not only with themselves, but with what's going on outside. And so that way, nothing really seems alien here as an attempt to do so. I mean, I've probably failed many times, but you kind of look outside and you look inside yourself, and then things start to happen by feeling deeply about what you're doing. And that's a hard thing to express to anybody, the feelings we have inside and reaching inside yourself to try to find an answer.
And I see that you have a yellow wall in a room that just works. Like you said, it's almost like a language. And
I'm going to tell you why that yellow wall's in there.
okay, tell me. I want to know.
It's the only room deprived of the sunset.
Ah.
And there's a Calder tapestry, straw tapestry, that is the sun, that hangs on the wall of the only room deprived of the sunset. So that's why that's there. The other guest room, which is not deprived of the sunset, has a blue wall.
Mm.
But those are also the colors of the Bauhaus, of Charlotte Perriand, of Le Corbusier, and all the people that taught me so much. And then there's a dematerialization in the house of the color of wood, of driftwood, of sky, of water, of clay, of sand. And those components make up the vocabulary here.
I love that. I love that. And it makes perfect sense. And you can see how much care and consideration for every single thing. Like, that's who you are, Lee, and that's why you're so special. All right, but let's move to the pool house, which is very exuberant and fun, still edited and restrained, and there is a different kind of color. What were you trying to say there? Actually, same color, but in a different way.
Well, I was again being trained sort of the Bauhaus and through Mondrian and the Albers disciples. I was also thinking of when a swimming pool was built and we were able to acquire the Tony Rosenthal cube, that pool toys are always bright colors.
Yeah.
So in tandem with the Bauhaus, in tandem with pool toys, the pool house becomes a pool toy. And all the shapes and things in there are a dolphin shape. They're amorphic, they're of the water. And that, again, that relationship of the things outside the blue water and the sculpture and the things inside relate to each other. But they're appropriate there because that's not the bay side. It's the pool side, which has an oblique view of the bay, but it's very different. I wouldn't want to distract from Peconic Bay, but at the pool, which is a little more discreet, you could then create relationships of inside and out that belong to that part of the project.
Hmm. And yet when you go up to the bedroom, it's very quiet. It's very serene.
Well, the intention there was like you were climbing the maple tree outside.
I love that.
Maple in there, the ceiling, the walls, the floor, and you feel like you're in a treehouse up there, up in the eaves, and with an overlook, and all you see are trees and water when you look out of there. So it feels very cozy up there, very quiet.
And that house and the pool house is closer to the street, right? And the vernacular
Yes.
is more, I don't want to say more farm, more modern farm. How would you describe that?
It leans into cottage. It has latent cottage tendencies.
Right, exactly.
But then it transitions later as we move down the site by the water into the two-story glass, which foreshadows the glass in the wedge along the boardwalk.
Perfect. Perfectly said. Now I'm afraid to say anything. You know, I love the aerial shot of the whole setup. The angles are so delicate and so beautiful, and then the water beyond. It's really something. I mean, don't you want to show everybody from above?
So I have to say, I got a drone for my birthday. That was the maiden voyage, and then I crashed it 5 minutes later. The drone's not working so well, but we got that footage out of it. We had to have a tree climber come up and get that thing to get the film out of it. But it is beautiful from above. I was very happy to see from the air, it looked like the diagram we drew initially. That was perhaps one of the most gratifying things, that you start with a bubble diagram.
Right.
And then 10 years later, you end with a bubble diagram. That was rewarding. When we worked with RF Landscape, one could say, how could you compete with a water view? You know, a water view is special, but
Right.
there's so many views out here that are beautiful. And what are those? If you were to kind of make a quilt of the architecture of the landscape as we did with the architecture, one could say, well, they're the beautiful horse fields here. There are beautiful meadows. There are wonderful hedges. There's wonderful lawn. There's water, and there are grasses. So what were the appropriate places to incorporate that thing? So the building is surrounded by the collage of the landscapes, just as the building itself is a collage of the context. So to the water side, you know, a lot of people think they have to rip up everything to get a water view. That's what's destroyed our shoreline. So we actually, in working with the DEC, planted all these grasses and all the indigenous things. So in the rear of the house, it almost looks like the tide of the water comes right up to the back terrace, as it were. So those grasses are 4 and 5 feet high. There are 3 types. There's fescue. And so whatever season it is, they turn a color. Now they're chartreuse, they will go purple, then they will go beige. They're just beautiful no matter what season. And when the wind blows and the rain is on them, it's mesmerizing to hear that and watch that beautiful, beautiful movement.
Definitely. And so Lee, tell us what this compound, what does it mean to you? When you were telling me that you create spaces that that calm people. You're a very energetic guy. What's it like when you get out there?
Well, I'm really an employee of the place, because to keep it right, you know, you want to make sure it's always okay. But I have to say, particularly during COVID, which has been challenging for all of us, I'm so grateful and so appreciative of this, which I had taken for granted and was working in so many far off places that I could never get here to the point that I am now. So to be able to see the seasons change, we felt like an infiltration of the movie The Birds with Tippi Hedren.
All right.
On the dock that goes out, we had
Amazing.
both and all kinds of ospreys and ducks and stuff, and they used the dock as a forensics kind of mortuary table. So they come in the morning and they bring all their roadkill there. Blue jays and all this stuff, because people backing off of the environment has also opened it up, and clams and crabs. So I have a great appreciation. I'm looking out the window now, and I'm watching the maple tree in the back, the shadow against the solar veil. And I'm thinking, that's amazing. And yesterday, I was just looking up and watching the movement of nature, and it's made me more conscious of that. And I'm so grateful for that, because we
Is there a favorite room or a favorite spot in the house that you always gravitate towards?
I discover a new favorite place almost every day. Like right now, I never sit in here, but I want it to be proper for you. So now
It
this
looks fantastic.
is the place because it's my favorite place with you.
Right.
So it depends who you're with to have your favorite place. It's never on my own. It's sharing it with somebody and finding something about it. And when people come to visit, letting them find a place that they like, and then I rediscover it through their eyes. And that's a lot of fun.
I bet everyone wants to stay at the pool house in the guest tree house room, right?
We've had people take the master bedroom too. People have taken everything.
Oh my God, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, Lee? You
Well,
keep
if they
telling
want
me.
to take the master, then my new favorite place is the pool house.
Right.
Forced to go there, and you have a new experience. I've slept in every room, not with every person, but I've slept in every room.
I don't want to know about this. I don't want to know about this.
But I've enjoyed the experience of everyone. I mean, one of the bedrooms is all Le Corbusier's dorm furniture, and the room is kind of divided into two places. So I love that. It has the blackboards from the school he designed, and another room has Perry and things in it, and the master bedroom has a suite of Clint furniture, the Scandinavian.
Love that. Love
There's
that.
Most master bedrooms don't have a piano, but there's another library space adjunct to it. So there's a piano that I bang on occasion. So each of these at different times of the year, when it snows, some places look better. The fireplace looks better when it's snowing, you know. But
And the most beautiful experience, can I say, is that you got married. You just recently got married there.
yes, in the middle of a biblical rainstorm, when the skies cleared for the ceremony, and then it started to rain right after, and then the most beautiful sunset ever. It was a really wonderful experience, and we had a very limited group of people, and we did the 6 foot on center spacing of Bertoya chairs, which was very nice.
Well, that's so beautiful, Lee. Thank you for sharing that. Blessings to you and Jose and all the love in the world. And this is a house that is your house, your forever house, right?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I used to feel too much like an employee, and now I feel like I'm a resident.
Yeah.
Because COVID has allowed me to make the transition.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. It's magical for all these years to have this time together to talk about it. Next time we're going to tour, it's going to be together, but this is as best as we can do for now.
I also want to thank you for the support you've given this house. It meant so much to me. I can't tell you the acknowledgement and the interest in it.
Are you kidding? I want to share it with everybody.
So
And watch out, you're going to have a lot of people going, oh, I was just in the neighborhood.
well, when COVID is over, let's talk about that.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Well, big hug, love and blessings. Take
Thank
care.
you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Good to see you.
See you at the next At Home. He is actually one important half of the firm Meyer Davis, an award-winning multidisciplinary design studio founded by Will and his other important half, Gray Davis. They are New York-based, specializing in residential, hospitality, retail, and work environments. And today, we're getting personal as we head out to Will's weekend house in East Hampton, New York. And we'll hear about renovating this mid-century treasure and about their new brand called William Gray that was honored over and over again at our Best of Year Awards. Hey, Will, how are you? So happy to see you.
Hey, Cindy, great. It's great to see you too.
Everyone's been so curious about how people are living, right? And you Zoom and you kind of catch a glimpse, or you see a kid running by. So it's really lovely to have these stories about how people are living. And this one, this one is a weekend house, but it's definitely a treasure and something that I remember you telling me about when you first sort of spotted it before you bought it.
Well, it's, as you said, it's a weekend house, but during this past year, 2020, we actually spent a lot of time there, living there.
Yeah.
and it turned into what we thought of as a weekend house became a great house to live in and work in, and be, if you can call it being stuck in, was
Yeah.
sort of a special time period. So we really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
But
that's the funny thing. So like out in the Hamptons, because I'm out there now too, like all of our weekend houses have turned into something else, right? But yours was kind of set up in a good way because you did a really beautiful renovation that went from this artist's retreat mid-century gem to like a family home, right? So tell us a little bit about the discovery of the house and the history of the mid-century beauty.
so I think I remember actually talking to you about the house when we first found it.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of architecture by Hugh Newell Jacobson. I think it's one of the first houses that he built or designed back in late '60s, and it's kind of a style that he originated with these sort of these these gables that sort of shift, and so it's almost like a sawtooth with these triangular windows. Um, and it was something very simple about the pure form that he was exploring that we were drawn to. The plan, I mean, clearly, I think he was designing it for this sort of weekend utopia getaway.
Right.
Our challenge was to turn this house into something that was, good for a family and good to be in a little longer than a few days.
So you spotted it, and it's in the Springs, which is a very particular sort of like, it was kind of an artist community in, way back when, right? And curiosity got the best of you, right? When you kind of discovered it.
Well, I kept driving past this for sale sign, and it was down towards the water. So eventually one day I couldn't help it. I
Right.
just drove down the driveway and found this amazing home, but it was very run down, I have
Yeah.
to say. And to the point where I was nervous about getting into this project, but I knew it was special.
Yeah.
The wetland setback kind of went right through the living room, and I think that's what had sort of um, maybe discouraged developers from taking the property and building a McMansion on the property. So
Right. And so for everyone out there, like that's the thing. There are these little mid-century treasures out in the Hamptons, and most of them get bulldozed down. And so even just keeping that history for all of us design people, that was like, yay, he's saving it, right?
that was important to me. And having worked for Charles Guathby, um, and appreciating that era of architecture that seems to be, being lost by the day. These houses get torn down, and I thought it was a little bit of my architectural duty to preserve this special house and be a part of that history, and preserve it for future generations to not forget what a special time period it was back in the '60s, early '70s in the Hamptons.
Yeah. And so you decide, okay, we're going to get this house. And then it's like, oh my God, now what am I going to do with it? So on one side, obviously is the waters, but it's also the wetlands. But tell us about how you like kind of honored the building, but then allowed it actually the addition to be the addition, right?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So what we did is we completely preserved and restored the original structure by putting new shingles and on the roof and siding. But everything we did that was new, we made white. So it was very clear what is new and what's old. And I think our work is so much about that sort of tension and dialogue between finishes and old and new, and that contrast that makes something stronger. That this house is a study in that sort of dialogue. So we were able to make all the additions white, and then everything else is this natural shingle cedar shingle.
Right. And you know, like when you come up, so I've been to the house, so I'm lucky enough. So, but when you come up to the house, you know, you're sort of welcomed by this beautiful modern house. And just like when you turn, if you're looking at images and you turn and you see the back of the house, that it shows all the shingles, but somehow it feels completely seamless.
Well, thank you. It's. I think we just made a sort of a kind of a set of rules about how we proceeded with the addition, where it's meant to be inviting. It's meant to be its own language, and you know, sometimes you set these rules up and they work, and sometimes they don't work.
Right.
So we were fortunate that it worked, but it also, I think it works because subliminally it makes sense, and I think you don't always know what it is that makes sense, but I think that rationale tends to take root and make sense visually.
Yeah. One thing that I was surprised about was, and we want to ask him what he was thinking, but you were saying that the south wall, so the wall that's looking out to the water was actually didn't have what we see now, which is expansive windows. And I mean, it's actually sliders that you can walk right out. Like, what was he thinking?
Well, it was, well, that wall, it was a series of these sort of French doors, but it was more closed off than it is now. So opening that up completely made a huge difference. And the wall that faces out towards the meadow, that was a solid wall. And the first thing we did was I had the contractors take a saw and just cut this big square out. And I remember I helped them push the wall out, and it was just, it was like exhale moment, like, okay, now we know why we bought the house.
Unbelievable. That's so
And
beautiful.
so to enhance that moment, we actually did this kind of glass window box that protrudes from the house. And I've noticed people exploring the house for the first time, they always want to sit right there. It's the first place that people go. So unfortunately, I rarely get to sit there because everyone else is.
Right. Get out of my way. I cut that hole. I want you to know, right? Yeah, that's so wonderful. And just sort of like kind of imagining how the house just started sort of breathing again. What was the time frame on the renovation?
So it's interesting. What we did was we bought the house in like May or something, and we moved right in it.
Yeah.
And we were only able to do just a few things that first year. And then after the summer, then we started back again and added the pool and the addition and all that. So we had one summer to kind of, they always say live in a house before you completely renovate it. So we sort of did that and kind of both and. But we realized, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, plus I can imagine, so you like bought it in May. That's like prime season. You got to get out to the Hamptons for the summer.
We
get
didn't
there, right?
have a choice. And it was kind of a blessing to be able to live in it, even though it was we basically had no kitchen and a few other things were not working. But it was good to benefit from actually being in the house.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Okay, so let's like act like we're entering the house so that we can kind of describe the experiences. So first of all, there's a beautiful horizontal slatted gate, right? Or wall. What do you call it?
There's I would call it like a slatted kind of semi-transparent wood wall.
Yeah.
And what we wanted to do there is create a sense of threshold so that you can open that and enter from, outside into another outside room. But this is a little bit more private. Our pool is there. So these varying degrees of public to private. So it's nice to kind of have that, interior outdoor courtyard buffer zone. And then we have this big, blue, of course it's blue, door, front door. And when you open that, you get this amazing view straight through the house, out to the water. That's the entry experience.
Right. And, it's sort of, even the way you describe it, it sort of reminds me of like how you think about your hospitality work too, sort of like making an entrance and then letting things unfold. And also because you have the water on the other side, but you have, I'm sure there were issues because you have the wetlands and like you want to have a pool, right?
We had to have a pool, and we only had a certain area that we could actually build on. So, and I think, that sort of head scratcher for other people became the aha moment for us, where it just made sense. You wouldn't want a pool on the other side of the house because
No.
it would separate you from nature.
Right.
So that's where the pool should be, and that's where the only place it could be. So it kind of worked out all the way around. But when you brought up the way we look at hospitality,
Yeah.
it's something that we do, and I think great hospitality designers do this. It's the creation of anticipation, and creating theater in a subtle way where you can't wait to see the next thing.
Right.
And layering spaces, glimpses of other spaces, and teasing what's to come. And I think that's sort of what we do.
So there's the gate, the beautiful gate. Then there's this really lovely pool area, and you haven't even gotten through the front door yet. And then
No, that's what you see when you walk in. And an interesting little factoid about the pool, so the groundwater was at like 4 feet below or 3 feet below the ground, and the pool can't go below that point.
Right.
So the only way to get a 4'6" deep pool was to raise the pool up. But by raising the perimeter of the pool, it made a perfect place to sit down. So it's at 18 inches and it goes around the whole pool. And we made that out of this sort of beautiful gray stone that we found. And, I've noticed people walk in and some will be drawn to the front door, but most will kind of go around and just sit on the edge of the pool and have take in the view.
Yeah.
So it's a good social place too.
Yeah. Well, you know how to create social spaces, that's for sure. So then you walk in, and it's kind of interesting that on sort of the square footage, which isn't ample, seems very, very natural that you were able to create a very big kitchen and lovely dining area going into the living room that looks out onto the water.
That's how the sequence of spaces worked. And I think one thing that I love about the house, it was an idea that we had when we designed it, but it really works, because you step up to get to the pool area. Then as you enter the living or the kitchen and dining, it continues to step down. And so there's this nice topography to the zoning of the house, which I think works really well. And also it works from being on the front of the house facing the water. There's this really nice continuity through the house back to the pool side. So it works well in communicating between spaces.
Yeah, it really does. And it seems very, very natural. I didn't realize that it had been for an artist's family or small artist's house, right? That there was a studio that you were able to then create the master. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so when they first built the house, there was this large studio that was directly behind. There were 3 small-ish bedrooms and I think 1 bathroom originally. And there was this giant studio right behind the bedroom, the main bedroom. And I think, it's everyone's dream to have a studio where they can paint and create.
Right,
right. It's my dream too, but a master bath became a little bit more important to us to have. So it was in a perfect location for that. So we converted that to this really beautiful, serene, kind of quiet master bath. With a beautiful, we did a sort of align the tub and the shower and had this giant picture window that looks into the woods from there, which we love too.
And a hanging swing? Was there a hanging swing?
There's a hanging swing. That's in the guest suite.
Guest?
So the key spaces we added to the house were the kitchen and the guest suite. And I always like to make a guest suite where they can have their own entry. So you can come and go when you want. You don't have to bother us or anyone else. And you feel like you're not in the middle of the rest of the family. So, and it's a nice big room with a hanging chair swing. You
It
have your
is.
private courtyard and a big bathroom. So it's kind of, guests love it so much that they never leave.
Exactly. Now, when I went, so I don't know exactly what was completely done because it wasn't all done. But I remember like going upstairs and seeing one of the kids' bedrooms and something high, like
I
a
think
high
that
roof.
when you visited was when it was sort of that early half done stage.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so we made the kids' bedrooms up in the eaves where they had their art storage. That was that zone that really made a kind of a fun kind of treehouse kids room. Um, so, when we design, kids lounges in our hospitality projects,
Right.
we took some of those ideas, made this little ladder that they had originally for the art storage. We preserved that and made it this little ladder to this little crow's nest where they can climb up and look out over the water from this little high perch.
Okay, so I'm not crazy because I remember going up somewhere high. That's all I remember.
That's exactly what it is. And it's a perfect little perch. And when you go up there, you're up in the treetops and you look out over, um, you know, um, Girard Point and Laos Point. So it's kind of a great little spot.
That's beautiful. All right, I want to talk about the furnishings because you have such a beautiful hand and a beautiful mix of many different types and styles, but always with this like lovely chic aesthetic. So you go down into the living room, there's this beautiful gray stone fireplace, but let's talk about some of the furnishings and that art, which is really
So the
special.
furnishings we have it's beautiful B&B Italia sofa, and that sort of grounds the room. And we did this sort of gray study where I wanted it to be all textural and tonal, and then let other pieces sort of pop. So the other pieces are we collected these Kari Klimp safari chairs that are original back from the 30s. We had found those in Sweden in this little shop and brought those back. And then we had these future perfect round nesting tables that sort of ground the center of the room. And the room feels very serene, peaceful, grounded. We found this really beautiful vintage Milo Bauman swivel chair piece that you can either swivel out and look at the view or swivel back and talk to your friends. And that's right by the fireplace, so you can be all cozy there. The room is punctuated by a pair of a diptych of Enrique Batista pieces that are actually my father-in-law painted them. And he came to our house and actually painted those in our house. So it was great to hang those and have those be, in an area like the Springs that's known for its rich abstract expressionism, hotbed for that movement. It was nice to have Enrique come and personally paint those there in the Springs and that beautiful light that's there.
First of all, that's amazing. And those two pieces, they kind of say everything about the house. Do you know what I mean? It does. It has that mid-century, the very cool aesthetic. It's modern, that graphic punch, but like very, very like edited. It's so special in that house, those two pieces, right?
I like them because they're punchy and
Yeah.
still cerebral.
Mhm.
And they're highly edited. It took Enrique
Yeah.
a week to paint those, and it was him studying and measuring and thinking, and you think they look so simple, but that's probably why people are drawn to them, because they're pretty fine-tuned.
Yeah. And wherever you are on the ground floor or outside looking in, you sort of like, you see that and it's like an exclamation point. Yeah, it's really special. And the fact that it's your father-in-law, oh my God, amazing, fantastic. And then, so then you walk out and then you have this beautiful area looking right onto the harbor, right?
So you walk through the house, there's a beautiful view out to the harbor, and there's a little trail that goes out to a dock that's on the water, so you can walk down and paddleboard and enjoy nature. that we share with our next door neighbors, and it's a little slice of heaven. We love it. We like it too because with everything being so built up in the Hamptons, it's next to a large nature preserve, and I feel like when you look out the window, it looks the way it would have looked 100 years ago in certain ways, and I think there's too little of that left there.
Yeah. Well, we're so, we feel so, delighted that you've been able to save and preserve that piece of history in such a beautiful, sensitive, and designy way, right?
We're happy to have done that ourselves, and I think people do when they visit, they appreciate that sort of sense of yesteryear, which
Yeah.
I think people really enjoy that, even though you can have amazing new houses that are like sit proudly on the land, but there's that sense of history that we love to preserve, and I think it's again subliminally you appreciate that sort of that lineage of the arc of modernism.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So thank you for that. Okay, now I don't want to end without talking about William. First of all, a partnership, like finding a good partnership is everything. I'm always so enamored when I have relationships with like really good partners in design, right? Because it's hard to come by, and when you do, it's good, it's really good. And you and the two of you are so special as design partners. So the thing is that you also have this great name together, right? So you have this new collection of different collaborations called William Gray, which is like so good, right? So even the name works. But tell us about, you do a lot of hospitality, so I'm sure you're doing a lot of custom work. So let's talk about these collaborations and what's come out of it.
So we have designed thousands of pieces of custom furniture. So over the years, we just thought we should do something with this. And originally, when we named our company Meyer Davis, we were thinking, what if we named it William Gray? And we decided against it. And so when this idea came up for the furniture line of products, we thought, when you do products, you kind of want to step out of your self and what we've established at Meyer Davis. So we thought it was an amazing opportunity to create a character or a muse. So this character is William Gray, and he likes, to travel, and he likes to collect things. So that was the sort of line of thought with the furniture line. So at William Gray, we've made these amazing collaborations with Cellarworks, Claybrook, Watermark, Contardi Lighting, and Rich Brilliant Willing Lighting. And they're all people that we've done lots of projects with and products with. And each line has its own kind of look and feel, but together they kind of come together with William Gray and create this kind of amazing world that's our collection.
So why don't you give us like kind of a snapshot of what's just come out and share it with all of us?
So we were originally going to launch at Salone,
right?
And that got canceled because of obvious reasons. And so we put that launch off until this fall, till recently. And so now the products are out there. We have, I'm sitting in, this is the Teddy chair that I'm sitting in right now.
I love the Teddy chair.
It's a sort of mini contemporary wingback with super slick lines that is really graceful and beautiful. So with Stellarworks, we have a really iconic chair called a Hugo, which is a beautiful kind of dining chair that we do. And Hugo with arms, without arms, Hugo Slim to go in restaurants that are kind of tight spaced. And then we have the Fold collection, which is the Teddy and the Ottoman and a daybed. And we have the sofas that sort of complement those, the Varick. And we also have, I think we have 20 plus pieces of furniture with Stellarworks.
Wow.
So they're all really beautiful. We design them kind of the old fashioned way, where we literally just took pen and paper out, sketched and used watercolors to find these pieces. You know, the way you sort of find a piece of furniture is just by sketching it over and over again, prototyping it over and over again. So after many trips to Shanghai and the Stellarworks factory, these pieces are now, they're out there and they're beautiful and people really love them. And it's just nice to see them, the reaction of the design world to these pieces.
Yeah, no, amazing. And so you're, so that's the furniture. Is the bath, is the bath coming? I saw beautiful illustrations.
So the bath, the actual, the vanities and the bathtubs, those are with Claybrook. And, you know, we were very fortunate to win the Best of Year award last year with those.
Yeah, amazing.
And the faucets and all the plumbing fixtures, those are with Watermark. And we have prototyped those, and they're renderings on our site. And now the prototypes are done, and those are on our website too at mrwilliamgray.com. So you can see those, but they're highly edited, but very strong in their lines.
Beautiful. And by the way, all the Stellarworks was like, I don't know, was there 3 or 4 honors? I mean, you did get a lot of recognition.
We were so happy to have those honors.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And it was so funny.
In many different categories. So
yeah, they were in so many categories.
Thank you so much. They're beautiful. And when things open up in the spring, we're thinking they're going to be on display. And the Stellarworks has a new showroom coming in Tribeca. So this is not a part of their main line. They have their special lines with Brightliner, this Ivory Coast company, Mr. William Gray, which is our company, and they'll be rotating in and out of that showroom in Tribeca.
Oh, that's great. And they're a wonderful company. And to see that level of craftsmanship is really wonderful on piece after piece after piece.
Retro, who owns Stellarworks, he's such an amazing creative force, and he is so has such energy for design and appreciation for design. You know, when Gray and I visit their factory to look at prototypes, it's so interesting to see the pieces that Neri and Hu were doing, and
exactly
is doing, and that you know, Space Copenhagen, they were there when we were there, and
oh really? Wow.
we
amazing.
all got to hang out and, you know, have dinner and, you know, look at different new pieces and prototypes, and, you know, give our advice to each other. It's just he's really got this amazing stable of great designers that are really inspiring to be with.
He does. So first of all, a huge congratulations on that. And also on your amazing partnership with Gray. You guys couldn't be nicer and more talented and successful, and all those things that you want is packaged up in a beautiful bow at Meyer Davis. Will, you're so special. First of all, I wish I could be like at your home hanging out, but if not, this will have to do at home the virtual way on DesignTV. So thank you.
Cindy, thank you so much. It's so nice to hang like this, and I look forward when we can do it in person.
I know, me too.
And it hopefully won't be that much longer. So, but it's an honor to be on your show at home to start off and kick off a new 2021.
Exactly.
And we're happy to keep this our industry and our arc forward. So.
Big virtual hug. Love you. Love you.
Love you too, Cindy.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye.